Bruchim habayim. Welcome everybody. Hope everybody is settled and comfortable. I stand here overwhelmed to be able to face Harabayas and be part of a Siyum, Yerushalmi Seder Zeraim, which is likely the first time in history so many people are finishing Seder Zeraim Yerushalmi together. So just a disclaimer, I am not finishing Seder Zeraim Yerushalmi, although I did do a few dafim in Masechtas Peah, few dafim in Masechtas Meiser Sheni, few dafim in Masechtas Bikurim. I couldn't stand here without being part of it a little bit. But I am not the one who can feel the simcha and the accomplishments like many of the people who are in this room and the hundreds, literally hundreds, if not thousands, that are around the world who are finishing Seder Zeraim today. There's somebody here who actually flew in special from South Africa just to join us and be part of the Siyum. I'd like to welcome all the people that came who are living in the United States, in Britain, in Canada, and of course those who have the schus to be living here in Eretz Yisrael. On behalf of the Orthodox Union, the All Torah platform is a project of the OU. I'd like to thank Rabbi Moshe Hauer and Rabbi Dr. Josh Joseph and Mitch Ader, the president, for giving me the opportunity to be able to build out this platform and go from Bavli to Yerushalmi to Amud Yomi and all the other platforms that we have. It's an incredible zechus that I don't take lightly. I would like to also welcome Rabbi Avi Berman, who directs OU Israel. I don't see him here yet, but he runs the OU Israel department, which is a tremendous program, many programs here in Israel. And Rabbi Yissochor Krakowski, who runs OU Kosher here in Israel, who worked hand in hand with the hall and myself to make sure that this event is certified OU Kosher. Thank you. Also like to welcome Rabbi Eli Elef, who works in our OU Kosher offices in New York, for joining. I also would like to welcome Rabbi Benjamin Kleinbart, who's here. He said a Daf Yomi Shir, Yerushalmi, Zeraim, every single day in Yiddish, with many people learning it in Yiddish. And like Bavli, when we launched All Daf, we had English Yurim. Why should we think that people other than English speakers are going to tune into All Daf? As soon as we launched, we got many requests for Yiddish, and we have 2 or 3 Yiddish speakers in the Bavli section. So we got requests now for Yerushalmi Yiddish, and Rabbi Yomi Kleinbart is kind enough to share his shiurim with us, and we're going to have it on this platform starting Seder Mayid. So thank you. I want to highlight one point. As I said before, even though I have not been zeicha yet to finish Yerushalmi Zeraim, there's one point I think we all could take from those that are finishing Seder Zeraim. There's a medrash in this past week's parasha, Parshas Chayesara. Seems like a bit of a bizarre medrash. If you learn the medrash, take it at face value. The medrash brings from Rabbi Akiva that he was saying shir, and the tzibur that was listening to the shir were falling asleep. So, first of all, you see, it's not just in our days that people fall asleep in the middle of shiurim. It happened in times of Rabbi Akiva as well. But what's bizarre is that a tzibur came to listen to Rabbi Akiva. You know, maybe they listen to my shir or some other people's shir, and we understand why they fall asleep. You have the schus to listen to a shir from Rabbi Akiva. Imagine if Moshe Feinstein came today, he's giving a shir. It wouldn't be that easy to fall asleep. But he wanted to wake them up. So he told them a line, which at face value also seems very strange. He says that Esther Hamalka, Queen Esther, ruled over 127 nations. How'd she rule over 127 nations? Because she learned from her Sari Imenu, her great-great-great-great-grandmother, and she saw that Sari Imenu lived for 127 years. So just like she lived 127 years, she had the ability to rule over 127 nations. Rav Dessler and Rav Tzadok both asked the obvious questions. First of all, why were they falling asleep? Like, what's going on here? And the way he's going to wake them up is telling them this interesting anecdote. And what does it even mean that Esther Hamalka ruled over all these nations because she learned from her great-great-grandmother, Sarah Imenu? And they say that they weren't falling asleep because they weren't interested in the shir just because it wasn't a good shir. Rabbi Akiva was teaching them Torah that was above their level. And he was teaching them, he's telling his Talmidim, telling the Tzibur, you gotta think big. You gotta think big. I'm teaching you things that maybe today you don't understand, and maybe you don't even have the mind to think to those levels. But look at Esther Hamalka. The way Esther Hamalka was able to become the queen of 127 nations there were a lot of nisim involved. But Reb Tzadok he has a big arichas to explain this, but he says that Esther Hamalka had to be able to understand and feel that she's proper and eligible to do the job. That's the only way she got the Ruach HaKodesh, to be able to be part of the Nes of Purim. And she learned that from Sarah Imenu. Sarah Imenu, the Imais who were pure, Kulan Shavan Lataiva, every minute of Sarah Imenu's life was used properly. And that's where Esther, she looked up to Sarah, and she was thinking big. And Rabbi Rosner mentioned that last Siyum, Rabbi Aaron Cutler, was he the Masada Kedushin or the Sandik of your brother? Right. I remember you mentioned that connection. Moshe was the Masada Kedushin, Rabbi Aaron Cutler was the Masada Kedushin. And there was he was supposed to be Masada Kedushin, but they gave it to Moshe, and he was the Sandik by the bris. Rabbi Aaron Cutler writes, he says, he talks about this by the Churban Habayis. And he says, what's the Churban in our days? How do we connect to the Churban Habayis? Or why do we have a hard time connecting? We're standing in front of a Habayis. He says, the reason why we have a hard time connecting is because we don't think big. We look at ourselves and we think we're only able to do a little bit. A person has to be able to think big. And is there any bigger lesson than those who are finishing Seder Zeraim Yerushalmi than people who think big? Rabbi Rosner could talk himself about how he started this year. Who knew? And he has 10 people sitting with him in the shul, and he has hundreds of people together with Rabbi Resnik around the world and others that are learning. I also have to thank Rabbi Zlatowitz from Art Scroll. He was the initial person. He called me and said, Art Scroll just finished elucidating the Yerushalmi, and we now have to have shiurim so people can learn it. So I have to thank him as well. I think that's when I called Rabbi Rosner and said, Rabbi Rosner, are you ready to take it on? I think his first response was, no way, we're not doing this. I think a few hours later, a day later, Rabbi Rosner was on board, and Rabbi Resnik, and we're here today with hundreds of people finishing. We have a guest speaker. I'm not sure if he arrived yet. He's here. Okay. So it's our schus to be able to have the newly elected chief rabbi, the Rav Rashi, who came to grace us with Divrei Bracha. I would like to call upon Rabbi Krakowski, who was very instrumental in getting him to come together with Rabbi Ganak back in New York to introduce him.
The Gemara tells us that at Tzorba Mirabbanan, a young Rav, there's a few ways to check if he knows his stuff, if he's a Talmud Chacham, and it's if he knows Safros, if he knows Mila, if he knows Shrita. Rabbi Belsky Zecharia Levracha used to explain this Chazal as he said, a Rav comes to Shtat, he comes to a town, new rabbi, and most people aren't really going to be able to test the rabbi how much he knows. He says there's 3 people in the colloquial Yiddish shtetl that could check the Rav at least in one miktzaya, in one topic, in one area. And that was the local Sefer, and the local Mayel, and the local Shaykhet. They should know, and there's a chazak also that they know what they're doing, and they should be able to ask pertinent questions to Rav and see if the Rav knows the answers. So it was by a matter of default that those are the 3 defining factors to be able to check a young Rav with. Baruch Hashem, thanks to programs like All Torah and their Yerushalmi Daf Hayomi, it's no longer that there aren't areas that one can test the Rav. Now, many Rabbanim have to be on their, toes when it comes to inyanim that until recently were kind of, look nice on the Svarim Shrank. On the Svarim shelves, look pretty volumes, but that's about the extent of it. But tonight, there's a tzibur here that finished after an enduring process, brachos in the Yerushalmi, okay. They say in Bavli that people start the Daf Yomi, they start with brachos, and then it's Bo Shabbos, Bo Menucha, and they stop. When it comes to planting, nobody, people aren't farmers now. When it comes to the Masechtas of farming, people, it's, to continue beyond brachos. Rabbi Schwed said that he's not finishing Yerushalmi's Rom tonight. Neither am I. I'm holding almost by the end of Shvius, not Daf Yomi. And it's an arduous task to be able to, an enjoyable task, but arduous nonetheless, to be able to go through Yerushalmi, Tegloch every day. Tonight we have the schos to hear from a Rav, the new Rav Harashi to Eretz Yisrael, La'asra Kadisha Hadein, who comes from the world of the Beis Medrash, not just from the world of Rabbanos, but from the world of the Beis Medrash, was a Ram in Yeshiva, in the Tifkeit, in the depths of sugyas throughout Shas, as well as being a Rav for so many years, both in the diaspora and in Eretz Yisrael. And for us, it's just a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous chus to be able to, at a Siyum, on Zeraim, on Yerushalmi, Shas to Eretz Yisrael, in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, overlooking the Makam HaMikdash, to be able to hear the Chizuk and the Torah from Morenu, Mara Da'asra, Kadisha Hadein, the Rav Harashi.
Erev Tov, it's easy for me to speak in Hebrew now. So if it's okay for you, I will speak in Hebrew. It's okay? Huh? Yes. If somebody don't understand what I say, so I will make translation. ברשות הרב יissochor דב קלויזנר, קרקובסקי, סליחה, מנכ"ל ה-OU, הרב משה שווד, עול תורה, מגידי השיעור ידידי, הרב רוסנר, הרב רזניק. It's my honor to be, להיות יהודים שסיימו ירושלמי זרועים. לא כל אחד מסיים ירושלמי זרועים. באמת, כבוד גדול בשבילי להיות עם יהודים הללו. שנים רבות, לא חשוב כרגע למה, מי עסק בירושלמי? מי למד את הירושלמי? ויש פה יהודים, תלמידי חכמים, שלמדו ירושלמי ועושים. אז קודם כל, באמת אשריכם. אני גם רוצה להודות לנשים שלכם שעזבו ונתנו לכם את הזכות הזאת ללמוד תורה. גם להם מגיע באמת את הישר כוח גדול for the women that you give את הרשות ללכת ללמוד. יישר כוח גדול. תודה רבה. אני רוצה לומר לכם, הסטייפלר כותב כמה זמן, how many time it's to take to be a big תלמיד חוכם. יגידו לי 20 שנה, 10 שנים. הסטייפלר כותב באיגרת, זה לוקח שנה או שנתיים. מה פירוש? כותב, אדם לומד מסכת ועוד מסכת, and after that it's go alone. אחרי זה הולך לבד. אדם למד ירושלמי זרועים, שזה לא פשוט. לא פשוט, ואין גמורס בבלי מקביל. אחרי זה הוא אומר, הוא נהיה הביג תלמיד חוכם. פשוט. זה הרצון שאתם מביעים, שאתם רוצים באמת להיות תלמידי חכמים. והאדם שלמד, יש ביטוי של האדמו"ר רבי צדוק הכהן מלובלין. He was a big rabbi. He met my old grandfather. זה איש בצה, אז הוא נהיה לחוסיד. והוא כותב, אדם צריך להאמין בהשם יסבורך, ואחר כך להאמין בעצמו. ואדם שלמד ירושלמי זרועים, הוא צריך לדעת, הוא יכול להיות תלמיד חוכם עצום. מה מפריע לו? שום דבר. אני רוצה לומר, הדוד שלי, של אשתי, קראו לו, הוא היה גם הרב הראשי לישראל, קראו לו הרב אברהם שפירא, זכר צדיק לברוכה, גם היה ראש ישיבת של מרכז הרב. הוא סיפר לי כמה פעמים, זה היסטורי, הוא למד את רוב תורתו, כך הוא אמר לי, למרות שהוא למד בחברון, אבל רוב תורתו בלמדנות, הוא למד אצל הגאון הגדול, רבי סר זלמן מלצר, בעל אבן האזל, היה גאון גדול. ורבי סר זלמן מלצר פעם סיפר לו, הייתה עיירה בליטא, לעיירה קראו קריניק, הרב של העיירה היה גאון עצום, הגאון רב זלמן סנדר שפירא. יש מכון ירושלים הוציא ספר, חידושי הגרזס, גאון עצום, היו לו 4 בנים, כולם גאוני עולם, אולי אחד מהם שמעתם עליו, רב אברום, בעל הדבר אברום, רב אברום כהנא שפירא, בעל הדבר אברום, היה גאון גדול. אבל יום אחד, ערב אחד, הוא מגיע, רב זלמן סנדר שפירא יושב, לומד, דופקים אצלו בדלת, פותח את הדלת, מי בא? אז לא היה מים בברזים, היה, ביידיש קוראים לזה וסרטרייגר, שואב מים, ווטר, קריץ', כן, ווטר. היה הולך ומוכר את המים שלו. אומר לו, זה היה בערב, הוא אומר לו, קראו לו, his name was זימל. זימל, היית פה כבר, בבוקר. מה? לא, אני לא באתי להביא מים. אני באתי לדבר עם הרב, לבקש משהו, to ask something. What can I help you? So Zimmel told him, if the rabbi want, I need to tell all my story in the fast. אוקיי, בבקשה. אומר לו, אני הבן הבכור, all children, של אבא. ומאז שאני זוכר את עצמי, אבא היה אדם חולני, חולה. תמיד הייתי בא מהחיידר, ואבא היה שואל אותי, מה אפשר לעזור לך? מה אפשר לסייע לך? לא, סליחה, הוא היה שואל אותי, מה למדת בחיידר היום? הקדיש שלי, ככה היה קורא, קדיש לי, זה מי שיגיד עליו את הקדיש. יום אחד אני מגיע ככה כמעט בערב, ומסביב לבית היה אנשים, אני שואל, מה קרה? What happened? אומרים, יש לוויה. לוויה של מי? אבא נפטר. אמא לקחה באמת לבית הקברות, היה עצוב מאוד, אפילו השמיים בחרו, ואמרתי קדיש. ואמא נפטרה לא אחרי זמן רב, כמה חודשים, לא מהתקף לב, שברון לב. הייתה כל כך שבורה, כל כך לא יכלה מה לעשות, ואני, בן הבכור, הבן הבכור, צריך לפרנס את האחים שלי. מה אני יכול לתת להם? מה אני יכול לעשות? אין לי מקצוע. הייתי בן 14, 14, between 14, 15. So what can I help them? But I need to give a פרנסה. So נהייתי שואב מים. ומאז, ברוך השם, חיתנתי קצת את האחים שלי והכל, עברתי את גיל 50, ואני עדיין שואב מים. והגויין רב זלמן סנדר שפירא מסתכל, so what can I help you? What can? זה רבי נו, אני שמעתי כבר הרבה דרשות בחיים שלי. אבל בשבת האחרונה היה בא לבית הכנסת שלנו, to our synagogue, a man, I don't know who he is. באמת, הוא לא אמר כלום, הוא רק קרא את הרמב"ם. בהלכות תלמוד תורה. והוא אמר, כל אחד ואחד ציטט מבני ישראל צריך לדעת את כל התורה. הוא כל אחד. זה שואב המים, זה קומפיוטר, לא היה אז, זה מי שנגר, how we say נגר, I don't... אוקיי. כל אחד צריך לדעת את... ואני שואל את עצמי, והוא אמר, שואב המים זה water carry. אני לא יודע כלום, I don't know anything. A few פסוקים, few משנייס, I don't know a blood gemore. So, רב זלמן סנדר שפירא הגויין שואל אותו, what can I help you? What can I help you? I came that the Rabbi will bless me. יברך אותי, שאני אהיה ביג תלמיד חוכם. הגויין רב זלמן סנדר שפירא שם ככה את היד, חושב, I don't want to bless you. אני לא רוצה לברך אותך. הרב, לא. אבל תקום. תקום, תגיד, אחריי. I want to be a big תלמיד חוכם. I can to be. I want to be. I can to be. והוא יצא לריקוד. זה היה ריקוד של קבלת התורה. אמר לי רב אברום שאמר לו רבי סר זלמן מלצר. ואיך הוא אמר? רבי סר זלמן לא רק היה גויין בתורה. אנציקלופדיה של מידות, לא היה מגזים כלום. ואמר, אני הכרתי, הייתי נער, הכרתי את זימל. Nobody call him זימל. Nobody call him רב זימל. Nobody call him הרב זימל. קראו לו הגויין רבי זימל. היום, שקוראים גויין, זה רק לדעת אם הוא זוכר או נקייבה, זה הכל. אבל אז באמת הגויין רבי זימל. כי זימל רצה, זימל יחל וזימל הוא... מוריי ורבותיי, באתי לזכות להיות איתכם. אתם הולכים להיות הביג תלמידי חכמים של הדור. מי עוד יש כל כך הרבה למדו ירושלמי זרועים? זה זכות גדולה להיות איתכם. ברור. אדם שלמד הוא מציר. I can. I want and I can. ברוך השם. במיוחד אנחנו נמצאים בזמן מלחמה פה בארץ. ואין שום ספק שהתורה שאתם עכשיו לומדים עוזרת לנו מאוד פה במלחמה. הגמרא אומרת, עומדות היו רגלינו בשערייך ירושלים. מי גרם שיעמדו רגלינו שננצח במלחמה? שערי ירושלים שהיו עוסקים בהלכה, היו עוסקים בתורה. אין שום ספק. הגמרא אומרת במסכת סנהדרין, אלמלא דוד היה עושה משפט וצדקה, יואב לא היה יכול להיות על הצבא. ואלמלא יואב לא היה על הצבא, דוד לא היה יכול. כל תורה, כל בלת גמורה, כל בלת ירושלמי שאתם לומדים, עוזרים, מסייעים לנו פה במלחמה. אני רוצה לומר עוד, לא רוצה להאריך. אבל תדעו לכם. הגמורה אומרת במסכת עבודה זרה, שלעתיד לבוא, בתחילת עבודה זרה, בדף ב' עמוד ב', הקדוש ברוך הוא בא לאומות העולם, ואומר להם, למי מגיע שכר? באים רומא, אחרי זה באים פרס, איראן. אנחנו רוצים. למה מגיע? עשינו ערים, עשינו גשרים, עשינו מלחמות, all for Israel. הקדוש ברוך הוא אומר להם, ערים, גשרים עשיתם בשבילכם. מלחמות, אני עשיתי. מה פירוש? ככה כתוב בגמורה. למה לא כתוב מלחמות בשבילכם? המלחמה באה בשביל, הקדוש ברוך הוא מנהל את ההיסטוריה של העולם דרך המלחמה. את המטרה של העולם דרך המלחמה. אני לא נובי. אני עכשיו לא רוצה להאריך בשיעור, אבל תדעו לכם, אני רק יכול לומר דבר אחד. אנחנו, לצערי הרב, לפני המלחמה, היינו, מבחינת היהודים, מצב מאוד מאוד לא טוב. מפולגים ומשוסעים, וכולם צעקו. עכשיו היה פה בערב יום כיפור, המסמכים של סינואר, הוא אמר למה הוא עושה עכשיו את המלחמה? כי אלה אמרו שהם לא יעזרו, ואלה אמרו שהם לא יבואו להילחם. ככה היינו. לצערי הרב. והמלחמה עשתה הרבה 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 יותר טוב. חודש אחרי שמחת תורה, תשפ"ד, after זה 7 באוקטובר, פנה אליי דובר צה"ל להשתתף באיזה סיור בעוטף עזה, around גזה. ואני הלכתי. היה סיור גדול, אחרי זה היינו בכפר עזה. היה קשה מאוד, אני לא רוצה עכשיו להאריך, אתם באמצע אוכל, מה ראינו שם. ואז, לא חשוב, אני באמת לא רוצה, אם אני אספר מה ראינו, אז הסעודה פה תישאר על השולחן, אז אני לא מעוניין. אבל פתאום הגיעו 2 מכוניות של אנשים שגרו שם, אי אפשר לגור שם עכשיו. עכשיו הם מתחילים לאט לאט. בא אחד, אני רואה, הוא שואל עליי, מי אני? הוא, אז הוא אומר לי, I want to tell you something. What? אני אתאיסט מושבע, אתאיסט זה, אתאיזם, לא מאמין בכלום. You don't believe in anything. If you will come before שמחת תורה, I will tell you, you know, אתה ראית את השער הצהוב שבו נכנסת? I want to see after the שער. I don't know, אני לא רוצה לראות אותך פה. But now, אני רוצה חיבוק חזק שלך. And if you may, I want to make a selfie. You want to, what it's a, okay. A selfie. So I asked him, מה השתנה? אני נשארתי אותו דבר, ואתה, קוראים לו יאיר, נשארת אותו דבר. למה אתה רוצה חיבוק? למה אתה רוצה סלפי? הוא אמר לי ככה, אני רואה מה שאתם עושים עבורנו פה, בכפר עזה. קשה מאוד. אני הייתי שם 2-3, אחרי זה אי אפשר היה שום דבר. ומה אתם עושים איפה שאנחנו נמצאים? פינו אותם. איך עוזרים לנו? אז אני רואה שאנחנו באמת אחים. אז אני רוצה חיבוק. מוריי ורבותיי, המלחמה, עם ישראל, המטרה לא יכול להיות מפורד. אנחנו העם שמייצגים את קודש הבריחו. אנחנו השגרירים של ריבונו של עולם. לא יכול להיות עם כזה שככה יהיה מפורד. והמלחמה עושה בשבילנו טוב. המלחמה, מה פירוש? עושה הרבה יותר אחדות בינינו. ואנחנו נתפלל. איך עוזרים לשני? איך יוצרים אחדות? לא אומרים לו שאתה תהיה יותר טוב, שתהיה כמוני. צריך לעזור לו, לסייע לו בגשמיאס. מה אני יכול לעזור לו? What can I help you? What can זה? ואז הלל אומר, הווי מתלמידה, אוהב שלום, רודף שלום, אוהב את הבריות. ואחרי שתאהב את הבריות, מתוך כך מקרבן לתורה. אבל זה לא מקרבן לתורה ואוהב את הבריות. קודם כל, האהוב את הבריות. תעזור לו. help him. in גשמיאס. ואחרי זה הוא יאהב אותך, ואני רואה את זה. הוא מקרבן לתורה. אולי המלחמה, אולי בא לעשות לנו קצת יותר that we'll be together. מוריי ורבותיי, זה חשוב מאוד. תודה לכם שהייתם. אנחנו מבקשים שברכנו אבינו, מתי כולנו כאחד, יחד באור פניך. תודה רבה, אני באמת, בסיום, עכשיו אתם בזרועים, אחרי זה בעזרת השם, הולכים ללמוד, מה עכשיו הרב? נושים? נזיקין? מויד הולכים עכשיו, אני לא יודע מה הולכים. אז בעזרת השם, במויד אנחנו נעשה גם סיום, לא פה, בירושלים, שם, ליד בית המקדש, נעשה את הסיום של מויד, וזה יהיה מועד לכל חי, בעזרת השם ובקרוב. תודה רבה לכם.
Before we make the Siyum, I just want to welcome a couple of OU board members who came, Dr. Michael Elman from Baltimore, who's actually one of the Messiahim. He learns in a group in Shomrei Amuna with sometimes 15 people who are learning there, and Chaim Wilkatch is here from that group as well, so thank you for coming. I want to thank Dr. Saul Langerman for coming, who's also from Baltimore, and finishing Yerushalmi. Thank Yechiel Eisenstadt, who recently joined the OU board, for coming. Thank you for participating. Before we make the Siyum, one of our Magidei Shir is Reb Chaim Aryeh Zev Ginzberg. And he's been saying Yerushalmi Shir. Many of you may know him. He's written books and done some videos. He's a rabbi in the 5 towns. But he couldn't be here tonight, but he was here for Sukkot. And he was extremely close to Rav Chaim Kanievsky. And in fact, he'll share on the video that he was only inspired to take on learning Yerushalmi. He was very, very sick. And after, from COVID, he even has a name added, Chaim Aryeh Zev. And Rav Chaim told him that Yerushalmi is something that he should learn. So he felt that he wanted to go back to Rav Chaim's house. He has a close connection to Rav Chaim Kanievsky's son, and make a Siyum there. And he spoke at the home for a couple of minutes. So we have that on video. Following the video, Rabbi Rosner will speak and make the Siyum here live.
As we come to complete Yerushalmi, say the Zeraim, the last Masechta, Maseches Bikurim, I felt it was incredibly appropriate to make the Siyum here in this Makom Kadosh. This Makom Kadosh. This is the house of Maran Saratayra, built in the Mishkach, Chagoin Rab Chaim Kanievsky, it's Chalasad of the Kadosh Lavracha, Schusa Yogin Aleinu. So many times, hundreds of times, I was okay to come into this home, to sit in this room, and to be Shoel Eitzah, to ask for advice, halacha shaylas from Maran, and to come into this home, it's painful at the same time. It's as chizuk to know that Baruch Hashem, the Torah is continuing here. Sitting on my left is Maran Agoin, the younger son of Chaim, Why are we doing the shir here in this particular place? Not just because Chaim was the Yerushalmi, was the person who not only wrote a Pirush on Yerushalmi, which I used every single day in this very room, gave a shir Yerushalmi after the Patira of his father, Maran the Stipler, zatzal, gave a shir Yerushalmi in this place as well. But for me personally, and those of you know who've heard from the beginning when we started B'Zechas Brachos, Dav Aleph, I said over the story of how Reb Chaim was a chayiv me to learn Yerushalmi. But after COVID, Reb Chaim was the one who gave me the name, added the name Chaim to my name, based upon my children asked Reb David Feinstein to Mishan Hashem, and he said yes, but asked Reb Chaim to give the name, and Reb Chaim suggested the name Chaim. And when I came the first time after COVID, and I came and Socha Debir, to sing the cover, and I said to Rabbi Chaim, I want a bracha, and he said, what bracha? So I said, B'dichusa, I said, my name is Chaim, and the Rav's name is Chaim, but this Chaim should be Zocha to make a Siyum on Kol Torah Kula every year of Pesach, like the Rav. And the Rav smiled, and then he tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, no, Yerushalmi. And then when I stepped out, he had his grandson come call me back, and he pointed, Yerushalmi, that's your tafkid now, is Yerushalmi. Eibishter gave you a new life, gave you chiyus, that this is your obligation now. Take upon Yerushalmi.
Ischaneni bevakosho, Ischaneni yoy bevakosho, Ischaneni yoy bevakosho.
Choschen bechvod achsanya. The Achsanya is not just Olmaya, but the OU is the real Achsanya, the All Torah. It's a tremendous chus to have been connected to the OU for about OU. I've been connected all my life, but in terms of the Torah for about 16 years, really a tremendous chus. I thank all of the Hanhala of the OU and of Waldorf. And for Rabbi Schwed to putting this together, again, it's tremendous. He deserves a Hakaras Hatov, and planning it from 6,000 miles away and then coming close is it's a zchus to have you here in Yerushalmi. Also sharing the podium with Rabbi Resnik, first time that I got to meet you. So I zchus, keep doing your amazing work. What is chus it is to be part of such an event. There have been many siyumim, and maybe many in this room have made many siyumim. But on Yerushalmi, in Yerushalayim, a public siyum with hundreds of mesayimim, very rare, for sure, in the past 1,700 years, since the Yerushalmi was written. As Schwed alluded to, he called me almost 2 years ago, and he asked me if I'd give a shiur, and I said no. And then he called me back a little bit later, and I again said no. And then I think it was Rabbi Glasser you had call me. And after a few, I said, who's going to listen? And they said, just start brachas. Yeah, you knew. Just start brachas, and brachas is amazing, but every Masechta is amazing. And it's really a tremendous, such a celebration. I think many of us thought, many of those who were Mesaymin, those listening out there thought, well, I don't have any time. What am I going to, I do Bavli. Yerushalmi is not meant to supplant the Bavli. It's meant to be an addition. I mean, an addition. I already go to a daf shiur. What am I going to do? That's why we make it a half an hour shiur, but my Resnik's is shorter than mine. But it's definitely a kiyum of the Chassam Sofer. The Chassam Sofer who notes, one of the 6 questions in Shabbos Lamed Aleph in the Bavli, Kavati Itim LaTorah, did you set aside time for Torah? But the Chassam Sofer points out that there's a pasuk in Malachi, where the pasuk in Malachi says, Hashem is saying, why do you bring karbanos? You steal animals and you bring them as karbanos. And the language is, Hayikva Adam Elokim, could you be koveya from God? And the Targum and Rashi there in Malachi says, Kev is a lashon of gezel, lashon of stealing. You could steal an animal and then bring it as a karban, hayikva adam elokim, and the Chassam Sofer puts that keva into the Gemara in Shabbos. Kavati item la Torah, gazalta. Did you steal time for Torah when you were supposed to be doing other things? But that time, it says, that's kavati item la Torah. Somehow, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves that Torah, Mayim Geduvim Yimtaku, that's the sweetest, Ein Mayim ala Torah. but somehow we found the time, somehow Kadosh Baruch Hu opens up more hours in our life. But I'd like to talk about, before we do the Siyum together, what exactly we're celebrating at this Siyum. Remember the words of the Marshal and Baba Kama, Ein simcha lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, greater than a Siyum. He even thought maybe to sheisa simcha b'mono at a Siyum, but he decided against it. But what is it about this Siyum that we're celebrating? 3 quick points. Number 1, it's not just a celebration of Torah, as many Siyumim are, and each one is unique and wonderful, but it's celebrating a portion of Torah that has been relegated to Yechidei Skula over the past hundreds and almost 1,600 years. Who learns Yerushalmi? Now, before I started, I used to say, even now, like if you ever have something that like nobody knows what the source is, oh, it's Yerushalmi. Like nobody could argue on you, right? It's Yerushalmi. Oh yeah, it's a Zohar, right? Now it's a Zohar. But now because people are starting to get more familiar with the Yerushalmi. But the Yerushalmi is an area that has been relegated to the side and not been focused on. Yes, the Bavli is more comprehensive and more authoritative, yes, but it's an area of Torah. The Sefer Chasidim, Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, Ohev lacha es ha-mitzvah hadome l'meis mitzvah, she'ein la'oskim. Love those mitzvahs that nobody's doing. Kagon shetira mitzvah bizuya. O Torah she'ein la'oskim. Or if you see an area or a portion of Torah that nobody is learning, pick it up. Shebnei ircha lomdim moed v'seder nashim tilmod seder kachim v'imtira she'ein chosheshim lilmod moed katan uperak misha mesu. They're staying away from the avelis prakim ata talamdeim v'tekabel schar keneged kulam ki heim dugmas meis mitzvah. Says the Sefer Chasidim. You have to learn everything that people are learning, but learn also the things that nobody's learning. Ehov osa mesechtas v'osan halachos shebnei adam ein regilim bahem. Tonight, the Talmud Yerushalmi is celebrating. Because when was the last time that so many of Am Yisrael learned together, B'rov Am Hadras Melech, like we discussed on the daf today? When was the last time, if ever this happened, since Rabbi Yochanan put it together 1,500 years ago? What an unbelievable schus the Yerushalmi is celebrating. Number 2, besides being a Meis Mitzvah, this is a celebration of something else. The Ramban writes in Parshas Achremos, words that he writes numerous times, but most comprehensively in Achremos, that every single mitzvah that we have within the 613 or within the 248 has added significance in Eretz Yisrael. Everything that we do, not halachically. They quote the story by Rav Hutner. They say Rav Aaron Lichtenstein picked up Rav Hutner, his Rebbe, at the airport one time, and he says, take me to a base medrash, I want to go put on tefillin. Rebbe, you put on tefillin on the plane. He said, no, Eretz Yisrael tefillin. So we're not on the level of Rav Hutner to recognize that on the plane is different, but this Ramban, every mitzvah that we do takes on an added dimension in Eretz Yisrael. Right, the Ramban's context is tefillin and mezuzah, based on the Sifri, but included in all mitzvos is, of course, Talmud Torah. Learning Torah in Eretz Yisrael, eino domeh. Avir Eretz Yisrael machkim, as the Gemara says, the Vilna Gaon, Gilui shel Torah hi be'eretz Yisrael. Torah's Eretz Yisrael, the learning of in Eretz Yisrael, has an added dimension, even if I would do the same learning in Chutz La'aretz. But Torah's Eretz Yisrael doesn't only mean in terms, to use Lamdish terms, on the Maisa Limud in Eretz Yisrael. But it's also about the Torah HaNilmedes. This celebration is not just about a celebration of Torah's Eretz Yisrael, of the Maisa, the learning be done in Eretz Yisrael, which spreads to the whole world, using technology to the best of what we could do. But it's the Torah about Eretz Yisrael. It's the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Talmud of Eretz Yisrael, reflecting what have we spoken about, all the mitzvahs hatluyas ba'aretz, all the mitzvahs that have to do with the kedushas haaretz. Remember the Bach, the words of the Bach, explaining that we say in Alamichya, v'nocha mipiria v'nispa mituva, and the Torah quotes. What are we saying that for? We're happy to eat, v'nocha mipiria? Says the Bach, kedushas haaretz hanishpas mikedushas haaretz hi elyona, nishpas gam bepeiroseha sheyonkim mikedushas hashchina. The fruit of Eretz Yisrael. They have Kedusha. Remember the story? We quoted it. Rav Rimon quotes it in his Sefer on Shvius. Rimon once walked into a grocery in Chutz La'aretz. He was hungry. He went to pick up an apple. He calls it Maisa B'Tapuach. He picks up an apple. He's about to go buy it, and he thinks to himself, Shemitah? No. Shubas and Maisrus? No. Arla? Savik Arla's mutter. He said he lost his appetite. He put it down. He walked out. It's just an apple. There's no Kedusha. Okay, I would have taken the apple. But because the fruit, this is a celebration of Torah's Eretz Yisrael. Number 2. So it's a meis mitzvah that we are osek in. Number 2, it's the Torah of Eretz Yisrael, both in the Maisa. But again, the Torah that's taught here, at least the shirim of Rabbi Resnik and myself, are able to radiate out. But it's still, anybody who listens out there is connecting to the Kedusha of the Torah's Eretz Yisrael and the content. But finally, number 3. The Gemara Sanhedrin tells us, Rabbi Abba tells us, Ein lecha case megula mizeh, shenemar v'atem harei Yisrael anfechem titenu. There are simanim of geula. There are simanim of redemption. When we look outside and we see flowers and trees and fruits, Rabbi Abba writes 2,000 years ago, that's a siman of geula, because the land will not produce fruit. It will stay barren and desolate until you come back. The letter that Mark Twain's letter, where was it? In the 1850s, wherever it was, he says, this land is desolate. There's nothing so desolate in the whole world. Nothing could grow here. 1850. Right after that, the Talmidei Agra, the Talmidei Baal Shem Tov. That's a siman of geula, when the land grows. And what about the kibbutz galias that we've witnessed over the past 175 years? Right, in the year 1850, there were 6,000 Jews in Palestine. 1917, there were 6,000. Yes, 1917, 60,000. 1948, 600,000. And today, more than 6 million. It's kibbutz galias in front of our eyes. We see the geula happening. A tzibur studying Talmud Yerushalmi, Talmud Eretz Yisrael, celebrating in Yerushalayim HaKodesh. Ein lecha siman geula gedula mizeh. This is a siman. Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld comments on the pasuk in Yeshayahu. Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh v'shaveha b'tzedakah. My father, Alav Shalom, loved gematrias. Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh is gematria Talmud Yerushalmi. The Shaveha B'Tzedakah is Gematria Talmud Bavli. Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh. When is the geula going to happen? When we start learning Talmud Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi. And Talmud Yerushalmi is the first half of the pasuk, because that's a siman of geula, a Torah that was been neglected, a Torah that's become collected and hugged and learned. So it's a meis mitzvah, it's Torah's Eretz Yisrael, and it's geulas Yisrael. Be'ezus Hashem, it should be completed very soon. So just to read the end and make the siyum, on Maseches Bikurim, the last lines that we did this morning, the last Mishnah discusses what is the halacha in terms of what was one allowed to do with the Bikurim. You could even buy a Sefer Torah. But the last line, the last 3 lines, Tani, Hamocher Sefer Torah shel aviv eino roa siman bracha la'olam. If somebody sells a Sefer Torah they received from their father, they're not going to see any siman bracha from that money. Even if you have other Sefer Torah, you don't see any siman bracha from that money. V'chol makayim Sefer Torah b'doch beiso. If you keep your Sefer Torah, Allah v'akasav omer, hon v'osher b'beiso, v'tzidkaso omedes la'ad. If you keep the Torah. And I mentioned this morning that maybe there's a little drush, not just the Sefer Torah that you got from your father, but Hamocher Sefer Torah Shalaviv. If somebody sells his father's Sefer Torah, if somebody sells the Mesorah that he received from his father and his family, and he just goes his own way and he does his own thing, he doesn't focus on Mesorah. You sell the Sefer Torah, ain't a roa siman bracha. Chol Makayim Sefer Torah Shal B'soch Beiso. If somebody's Makayim the Sefer Torah of their father, somebody's Makayim the Sefer Torah of what they've been given. So Allah v'akasav omer. Hon v'oshe bebesav zikaso medes la'ad. So again, this should also be a schus for my father's neshama. I'm still on avelis for Avi Mori Chaim ben Yoshua, my grandfather Yoshua. We just married off our son 2 nights ago, namesake Yoshua. Should all be a schus for my parents and for all of Klal Yisrael, and we should be zocha to have Shalom and Geula and Yeshua very soon. Slik Perik v'Slich Masechet B'di Bikurim v'Kula Seder Zeraim Barachmei Shmaya. Hadron Lach Masechet Bikurim v'Hadron Chalan. Tayt Lach Masechet Bikurim v'Seder Zeraim v'Tayt Chalan. Nishri Masechet Bikurim v'Seder Zeraim v'Totishim Minon Lo Bal Madim Lo Bal Madasi. Hadron Lach Masechet Bikurim v'Seder Zeraim v'Hadron Chalan. Tayt Lach Masechet Bikurim v'Seder Zeraim v'Tayt Chalan. Lo Nishri Masechet Bikurim v'Seder Zeraim v'Totishim Minon Lo Bal Madim Lo Bal Madasi. Hadron Lach Masechet Bikurim v'Seder Zeraim v'Hadron Chalan. Tayt Lach Masechet Bikurim v'Seder Zeraim v'Tayt Chalan. Nishri Masechet Bikurim v'Seder Zeraim v'Totishim Minon Lo Bal Madim Lo Bal Madasi. Hashem, the next time we learn Bikurim, next time we learn this Seder, it's going to be Lamaisa for all of us. Lamaisa Daraisa. Daraisa, not the Rabbanans. Daraisa. Bez Hashem. Yeres Amafanecha, Nalena Levasin, State Rasko, Monasin, Balamazeti, Manalamaba. Chanina Bar Papa, Rami Bar Papa, Nachman Bar Papa, Chai Bar Papa, Abamar Bar Papa, Rafim Bar Papa, Rakesh Bar Papa, Surcha Bar Papa, Adar Bar Papa, Dora Bar Papa. Harev no Adonai Eloheinu, Tivir Rasko Befinu, V'Fias Amcha Beis Yisrael, V'Nei Kulano Anachnu, V'Tzet So'enu, V'Tzet Amcha Beis Yisrael, Kulano Yodi Shemecha, V'Lom Dei Sorasecha, Me'avet HaChakmini B'Svasecha, Ki Lolam Hili, Hili B'Samim B'Chukecha, L'man Lo Yevosh, L'Om L'Ashka, P'Kudecha, Yivam Ch'Yisani, Berchato Adonai Lamdini Chukecha, Amin 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 Salava'ed. Modim Anachnu L'Fanecha, Adonai Eloheinu Levazinu, Shesamto Chakinim Yoshe Beis HaMedrash, V'Lo Samcha Chakinim Yoshe Kronos. Shana Mashkim, Hey Mashkim, Ana Mashkim L'Dvei Torah, Hey Mashkim L'Dvarim B'Telim, Ana Amelim, Hey Amelim, Ana Amelim M'Kal M'Schar, Hey Amelim V'Inim Kal M'Schar, Ana Ratzim, Hey Ratzim, Ana Ratzim L'Chayim L'Abba, Hey Ratzim L'Ber Shachas, Shnei Bar Batal Him to redeem L'Ber Shachas, An Shidom Mir Lo Yechsei Meim V'Ni Yaftach Bach. Yirasam L'Fanecha, Adonai Eloheinu, Kishem Shazar Tanu, L'Sayim, Meseches, Bikurim, V'Seder Zeraim, Kain Tazreinu, L'Haskal, Mesachlu, Zeraim, Achim, L'Saimam, Lomar L'Aim, Yisrael, L'Asu, L'Chaim, is called the Reis Salmo Torah Secha B'Yava, U'Schos Kol HaTanoim, V'Amoram, V'Tamidei Chachamim, Yamod Lanu, L'Zareinu, Shlo Tama Shator Mipinu, V'Pi Zareinu, V'Zera Zareinu Adalam, V'Diskayim Banu, V'Salacha Tanche, Osach, B'Shachvat Tispar Alecha, V'Kisos Hit Sichecha, Kivi Yerba Yemecha V'Siv L'Chosh Chaim Orach Yamim B'Minol B'Smal L'Shav V'Chavod, Adonai Oslamo Yitain, Adonai Yivarech Asamo V'Shalom. We're facing the right way. Yiskadav Yiskadash Shmei Rabba B'Yamadu Asilis Chadas Olachi Messiah Ulasaka Yason L'Chayi Alma Ulamivnei Karta Yerushalayim Shachle Echala B'Gava Ulamekar Polchana Nechra Ben Ara Ulasava Polchana Dishmai La'asri V'Yamlech P'Kutsha B'Richu B'Machosei V'Karei V'Chayi Echonu V'Yamechonu V'Chayi Decho Beis Yisrael B'Agalav V'Zman Karivim Ramein Yehei Shemei Rabba Mivarach the Olam L'Yomei Almaya Yisbarach V'Yishtabach V'Yispar V'Yisraman V'Yisnasei V'Yisadar V'Yisalev V'Yisalosh B'Yid Kudusha B'Richu L'Yela Mikar B'Chasav V'Shira Sadish B'Chasav V'Nechem Asad Amiram B'Yamav V'Ramein Al Yisrael V'Rabbanan V'Altamidein V'Chata Midei Samidein V'Yakam Madas Kam Yaraisa Divasor Kedishadein V'Divachol Asar V'Asar Yelon Chashlam Rabba V'Chinu V'Chizur Achmed V'Chayin Arichin V'Zoni Rebbichei V'Gani V'Kadam Avodi V'Shmaya V'Yamrav V'Ramein V'Hei Shlam Rabba V'Shemaya V'Chayim Tovim Aleinu V'Yisrael V'Ramein Yisrael Shalom V'Ramav V'Rachmav Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Yisrael V'Ramein Hey, all in assignment and whoever didn't, start tomorrow. Shabbos Daf Aleph. Okay.
Before we begin Masechah Shabbos, I know Rabbi Rosner said we'll all have to begin, so we could begin tonight. We don't have to wait till tomorrow with Rabbi Resnik. I want to introduce a short video that Rabbi Rosner came with me Thursday to film. And before we forget, I can't believe I didn't mention Mazel Tov to Rabbi Rosner. and Mrs. Rosner and family. They made a wedding Sunday night, so let's wish them all a mazel tov. So we went to visit in Moshav. I think it's pronounced Gimzo. And we got to meet a farmer and a bunch of school-age boys actually working the field. And we had a discussion. We got to see them in action, actually olive picking, but it's not how we imagine picking, like going to the trees and taking down the olives. It's fascinating. And Rabbi Rosner had a bit of a discussion with the farmer, with the chaklai, about how he goes about Trumas and Meisus and some of the various mitzvot tluyos ba'aretz. So we're going to show that, and immediately following that, a connected video, we have the zchus to have a farmer with us, Rabbi Label Deutsch, who actually made Aliyah from Muncie over 45 years ago, and he'll share in the video very briefly why, when he was married with 6 kids, he decided he has to come, move to Eretz Yisrael to work the land. He's been living in Moshav Yisodot since he moved here, and just as an introduction on the video, you're going to see Rabbi Deutsch. He tears up when he speaks about his 7th grade Rebbe from Muncie. I know who this Rebbe is. He was a Rebbe of my father's. And I just, to be able to see somebody have hashpah, an influence on somebody so many years later, it was just a lesson for me, how we could have hashpah on everyone around us for years and years and years and years. And he ends off the video. We get interrupted because Yisodot's right near an Air Force base. And as Rabbi Deutsch says on the video, Baruch Hashem, we can't compete with the Israeli Air Force, and their jets were flying overhead, so we had to stop the video. So, enjoy. We're here in Moshav Yisodot with a chaklai, a farmer. I'm going to have him introduce himself because he speaks perfect English and tell us how he ended up here over 40 years ago.
I was living in Muncie. I was in business. I wasn't getting spiritual satisfaction. What's in Israel called sipuk. I felt that I wasn't doing anything for my spiritual happiness. I was covering my bills. I didn't owe anybody any money, and I was living the life of Muncie. And one day I was going home from shul, and a couple of guys from Rockland Community College down the road on Shabbos afternoon, right after Musaf, they threw a beer can out the window. Not to hit me. They did not look very dangerous, and it was almost a smile. Hey, Jew, why don't you go home? And now my house was two houses away from where I was at that moment, and I started thinking. I liked Eretz Yisrael all the time. I learned here in Kollel for a couple of years, by Rabbi Scheinberg and Torah. Started me thinking, what is home? Is home a place where you build a house and you live in it, or a tent in the desert, or is home where your neshama feels that they feel comfortable? I told my wife, I think it's time to move. We had 6 kids at the time, and
what year was this?
1978. And I didn't want to go right away because I wanted my son to have the same 7th grade Rebbe that I had in Yeshiva Spring Valley, Rabbi Mashinsky. I waited 1 week to have him so I could have my Rabbi Mashinsky as a Rebbe. I'm crying.
We know Rabbi Mashinsky. Rabbi Mashinsky was an old Torah V'das Talmud who also became a Talmud of the Kloisenberger Rebbe, who happens to be my sandik. And Rabbi Mashinsky was a legendary Rebbe who,
So I waited till he finished the 7th grade, and that's something I made Aliyah. Simple.
And you bought a piece of land and started farming?
No, this is a Moshav Shitufi. I had to be accepted to join the Moshav as a full member, meaning that Chevrutif, that I would get along with the people, they would get along with me, and yet my work ethic was such that they can continue working the Moshav. It's a farming Moshav. We have cows and chickens, and we have a lot of fields and vineyards. And I felt my temperament would be very good being in the vineyard, where it's you go out in the field and you basically take care of what you have to take care of. The difference between a vineyard and raising kids is that when you give the vineyard what it needs, it comes out the way you expect it to come out. Baruch Hashem, I have 7 children, and everyone came out the way they should come out, Baruch Hashem. So that's it.
What was your Seder Hayom for many, many years.
Get up in the morning, learn a little before davening, have daven chakras, go have a quick breakfast, and go out to the field and take care of my vineyards. I had 150 acres of vineyards here that I was in charge of. Not right away. The first couple of years I had to learn what it meant. I bought a textbook from the University of California of viticulture, which is growing vines, who is not like a vintner. Vintner is the one who makes the wine. Viticulture is the growing the grapes. I studied it, and I went to seminars here in Israel. I worked under somebody who was running it at the time, and slowly but surely I became became my responsibility over here. The boys go to yeshivas, and it's a mixed community. We have some Hasidim and some Mishnagim. We have on Shabbos, some Streimels, and we have some black hats.
And everyone is here has
one
to
shul.
be working on the farm?
That's our shul.
The reason why we're standing in front of the shul is because Reb Label is retired. He's not working on the farms, and he sits and learns in the shul. That's where we met him. So it's fascinating just to be able to meet you here and to learn about this moshav and everything that you've done. And do you have Gaisha workers or Einam Yehudim? And
No, we've
changed since the
actually,
war?
but since the war meaning we used to have Palestinian workers here all the time. In the morning they would come down, I would tell them what had to be done. They worked as a labor contract would bring the workers. The Palestinians are good farmers. They know how to work the land, and they're strong. But since now we don't have it, we're using Thai workers from Thailand. We had Thai workers before then also. Now we're trying to fight against the Israeli Air Force. It's a losing battle, Baruch Hashem.
Shukayach, thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you. Old pals from Monsey.
The Ramban writes, part of the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is not just to live there, but it's to build it up. So every time you see an olive patch, whenever you see any type of orchard, that's a kiyum daraisa. For 2,000 years, there wasn't anything. We have the supposed to live in the generation of Geula. And remember Rabbi Abba in the Sefer Sanhedrin? That's a siman of Geula, that the land is going to blossom. And that's what we see, Baruch Hashem. When was the last time in 2,000 years that there was a major Siyum on Seder Zeraim Yerushalmi in Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh? When? What is chus? This is it, you bang the tree.
Bang the tree.
Masika. In English we just say harvesting, like cutting. But in Mishnah parlance there's a different word for olives and grapes and dates and figs. That's how you get the olives down. You bang. Got a lot of energy? Come get some olives down. L'shem mitzvat Yishuv Eretz Yisrael.
יש השנה, ברוך השם, שנה ג' וו' של השמיטה, זה שנת מעשר עני. זיתים זה עץ.
זה עץ.
אחרי חנתה. ירק שאני כותב עכשיו, אני מורה לחקלאות, מגדל ירקות. כותב צנון גדל תוך כמה חודשים. צנון שעכשיו אני כבר כותב מאז ראש השנה.
זה תשפ"ה. Right, if he cuts vegetables today, so that's Ma'aser Ani, it's the third year. אבל החנתה...
אחרי חנתה, חטאו בשבט. אז הזיתים האלה, אפילו שאנחנו כבר בתוך שנת מעשר עני,
אז זה שנה עבר, אז מעשר שני.
מעשר שני, שההפרש גם מאוד גדול לחקלאי.
It makes it challenging for a farmer who has vegetables and fruit. So the vegetables go by Lakita. They go by when they're harvested, when they're cut. That would be a third year fruit, vegetable, and therefore that would be Ma'aser Ani. But the olives that we see now, if they had Chanata Acharei Elul, okay, there was Acharei, so that would be, but it's before Tu B'Shvat. So right now it's before Tu B'Shvat, so it's still considered Ma'aser Sheni year. Ma'aser Ani nowadays costs the farmers a lot more than Ma'aser Sheni. Ma'aser Sheni we don't eat nowadays. We don't have a Chomav Yerushalayim. So you just take a little bit off your poda, right? Hektar shechilosh al sheva pruta mechulal. And we do that. And we do that lechatchila. We do lechatchila al pruta bisman hazeh. So if it's Ma'aser Sheni, the farmers don't have to give as much. Mehirei b'nei Beit HaMikdash will have to give a lot. But right now, Ma'aser Ani costs the farmers a lot more than Ma'aser Sheni. So a lot more.
It's a big nisayon for the farmer.
Right. So right now, it's still Ma'aser Sheni for the olives.
Of the olives.
For the olives. Next year it's going to be Ma'aser Ani. Chazak v'emat. Hashem should give you all the brachot, kol brachot ba'olam, beglal shibud lahalacha. Wow. Oh.
יש להם פילטר בכניסה, זה מסנן את כל העלים, שוטפים את זה, ליין כזה, שוטפים ופרס, אוקיי?
Right, there's an assembly line, they put it all in, they take out the leaves, and then they press it. מה עושים עם התרומות ומעשרות?
תרומות ומעשרות לפי ההלכה צריך לתת מהמוצר המוגמר.
אחרי גמר מלאכה.
אחרי גמר מלאכה. גמר מלאכה של זיתים לשמן זה השמן. אני מביא את הרב של המושב, אחרי שאני מביא את השמן לפה חזרה, ואנחנו מפרישים תרומות ומעשרות.
אפשר שהכהן משתמש לחום, להניה, אפשר
כן, בדיוק. אנחנו מטמאים את השמן, שם את האצבע בפנים, אנחנו טמאים מתים כולם.
כן.
השמן טמא, ואז השמן טמא יכול להיות לכהן לשריפה.
כן.
משתמש להדלקת נרות.
זה מצווה. מצווה שריפה של טומאת טמאה.
נכון.
הנאה של כילוי. הנאת כילוי.
I'd like to call upon Rabbi Zecharia Resnik to address us and to begin Masechta Shabbos.
Thank you. So about a year and a half ago, Can I just take it out? So about a year and a half ago, I met Reb David Yonah Rosenbaum. That name is not going to mean much to anyone here. He's the Aryeh Rashi, the chief editor of Yerushalmi, of the new Yerushalmi text that we've all been using, either in the Art Scroll or in the Zvahader if you're just using all Hebrew. He's the one in charge of the entire project. I ended up bumping into him. We were in the same, there was a whole bunch of other people there. Lo mashana what the story was. So I thanked him very much for all of his efforts into putting out such a beautiful product that we're all able to learn Yerushalmi. So he told me, you know how amazing it is? How many people, how many Avrechim, how many Talmidei Chachamim are learning Yerushalmi because of this new text that we've been involved in? So I said, besides for the Talmidei Chachamim and the Avrechim that are learning, what about the regular people, the regular Balabatim, the regular Hamoinam as we call them, the Hoi Polloi, the regular me's and you's, everyone's sitting here, all those people that are sitting and learning. So he said, what do you mean? So I asked him, what do you mean? What do you mean? I told him, what do you mean? We have the All Torah. So he looked at me with a little bit of a quizzical look. I don't blame him. I think he's a Skver Chassid from living in New Square, so I can understand how he wouldn't know about All Torah platform. I said there's something called All Torah, and there's so much Torah being learned there. There's Bavli and Mishnah, and now there's Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. This was before the discussion, and I said, and they opened up a Yerushalmi shiur. There's people giving Yerushalmi shiurim, and there's regular balabatim that just go about their regular day lives, doing whatever they do, not sitting in yeshiva, not avrechim, not Talmidei Chachamim yet. Now probably Talmidei Chachamim, as the chief rabbi said, and they're sitting. There's hundreds all across the world sitting and learning, and I could tell that he was very taken, and it really moved him a lot. That his product, if you will, wasn't just for a select group of people that are sitting and learning in yeshivas in the Olam HaTorah. It was for every single person in Klal Yisrael has the ability to tap into that. And that's a big simcha for all of us sitting here. Messiahim, want to be Messiahim, will be Messiahim, everyone all together, that we have this ability to learn Yerushalmi, which Rabbi Rosner said was unprecedented for 1700 years. It was really just for the Yechidi Segula, the very unique individuals that had access to Yerushalmi. And obviously that's for most of us learning here, it's for a very big thanks to Rabbi Moshe Schwed from Aldaf. He's always involved in trying to spread Torah as much as possible with all the All Torah apps and all the different shiurim. You can literally get Kol Torah Kula on your phone, and there's really no reason not to sit and learn Kol Torah Kula. Yerushalmi is one of them. Along with that, I would be remiss if I don't mention my dear personal friend who usually does not like to be mentioned by name, so I won't mention him by name. He's not here right now. He's in the States. And he's really, what? Yeah, we were dancing with him on the phone. If you were watching during dancing, we were dancing with a phone. That's him. So he's really the real reason behind the quick daf shiur in particular. So I might be the voice behind the microphone. Now I'm a face. But he's the entire reason why the quick daf happens. He does everything from A to Z besides giving the shiur. And so a great thank you goes to him, as well as to a very generous family who has sponsored all the shiurim, Le'ilui Nishmas, Maris, Miriam Sarah Basar B'Yakov Moshe, and her honor and her schos, much Torah is being learned across the world, not just Yerushalmi and Bavli Shurim, but in many other ways as well. So her Shalom should have a tremendous aliyah. So I just want to ask a few questions and then give one answer perhaps that goes through all of them so we can have a real perspective on what we just did and are about to do. Why is it that Seder Zeraim is the beginning of Torah Shabbal Peh, if you will? It's the first Seder in Mishnayos, and over here in Yerushalmi, it's the first Seder in Gemara as well. Why specifically Seder Zeraim? It should really be Seder Mayid. Mayid is all about the Yomim Tovim and Shabbos and things that we really do on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Zeraim seems to be somewhat random. Unless you're a farmer, we have a schus to have a farmer over here, but unless you're a farmer, it's not really so relevant. In Eretz Yisrael, it's a little bit more relevant. It's not really that relevant. So why Seder Zeraim in the beginning? Question number 2, what's the running theme throughout Seder Zeraim? We have many different mitzvahs hataluyos ba'aretz. That's obviously the main theme. But what's perhaps something a little bit below the surface that we can gain from Seder Zeraim? Number 3, why is it that Maseches Bikurim is the last Masechta in the Seder when really it's the first mitzvah that we encounter with mitzvahs hataluyos ba'aretz? A person plows and plants, and there aren't really any mitzvahs. There's an isser, you're not allowed to plant kilayim, forbidden mixtures, but the first mitzvah, the mitzvah's essay, what you should get up and go do it, the first one we encounter is Bikurim, when the fruit starts ripening, so you tie a string around it, and you say this is Bikurim, machlekes in the Mishnah, if that's officially called Bikurim, okay. But it's the last Masechta in the Seder. It should be the first, right after Brachas, it should be Brachas, then Bikurim. But we have Brachas and Pei, Demai, Kilayim, so on and so forth, and the last Masechta being Bikurim. To add to this question, you consider another question, or in addition to the question, if you're counting, I think we're up to 4 or 5, I'm not so sure. You have all the way at the end of the Masechta, like Rabbi Rosner read, we have something seemingly completely random. It talks about halachas of a Sefer Torah. If you have a Sefer Torah, don't sell your father's Sefer Torah. If you keep a Sefer Torah in your house, that's a wonderful thing. There's a pasuk that's said about how great it is to keep a Sefer Torah in your house. What in the world does it have to do with the entire Seder Zeraim? We're talking about mitzvah talis ba'aretz, Chumas, Meiser, Chala, Arla, Bikurim, make sure you do here, do this, do that, Pehanim, Levim, a whole bunch of very interesting topics that many of us don't know about. And then all of a sudden we end off, the grand finale of Seder Zeraim is having a Sefer Torah in your house. What does that have to do with anything? And now, obviously, since in Yiddishkeit everything is connected, we don't live in day-type compartments, we live always constantly in a big cycle, so the beginning always has to do with the end, and the end always has to do with the beginning. So what does Maseches Shabbos have to do with Seder Zeraim and Bikurim, and specifically the beginning of Maseches Shabbos, which talks about Haitzah? I think officially, according to the schedule, we're supposed to be giving an introduction to Seder Mayid, and specifically Maseches Shabbos. So Shabbos begins with the Malacha of Haitzah, which is the Isser, the prohibition of transferring, in large part, of transferring from one Rishus to another, Rishus Yachad to Rishus Rab, and vice versa, private domain, public domain, and there's a lot of discussion about that, not only in the beginning of the Masechta, but in many other places throughout the Masechta. Transfer from Rishus to Rishus is the last of the 39 Malachas, and here we're starting the Masechta discussing it in great length, and there's actually really another whole Masechta dedicated to the concept of transferring between different Rishuyas, and that's Maseches Eruvin. So what's with this emphasis and this focus of Seder, of Maseches Shabbos beginning with this Malacha of Haitzah, transferring from one Rishus to another? The first question we're going to answer by itself and connect it to the other ones. The first question was, if you remember, I'm not so sure I remember, first question was, why is it that we begin Seder Zeraim? Why does it begin Torah Shabbal Peh with Seder Zeraim? And the answer is, because we know there's a Gemara in Tainus that says, quotes a pasuk, Adam ki yamas ba'il, if a person dies in a tent. The Gemara, the Chaim in the Gemara, Darshan, is referring to the way a person is supposed to learn Torah. A person has to be meimis atzma eleh. He has to kill himself in order to be able to learn Torah. The way that Chazal wanted to bring that out is specifically in Torah Shabbal. This specifically refers to Torah Shabbal Peh. Torah Shabbal Chsav, which is Chumash, Navi, Tanakh, it's really not so complicated. You don't have to kill yourself to learn it. It's the word of the Lord. It's Psukim. You read it. You have a translation, and you got it. It's pretty simple. It's only when you come to Torah Shabbal Peh, Mishnayos, Gemara, V'chulu, so on and so forth, where it gets really complicated and really confusing, and a person really has to kill themselves. They really have to work hard. In the yeshivish world, it's called Haravanya. You got to work really hard. You got to sweat. You got to schwitz in order to be able to understand it. And the way this is brought out is by Seder Zeraim. Zeraim literally means seeds. What do? You take a seed, you put it into the ground, it decomposes, it dies, it completely disintegrates, and only then you have the tzmicha, only then you have the real growth. So if a person wants to have real growth in Torah, they have to really kill themselves and work really hard. That's what Chazal are trying to bring out by having Seder Zeraim as the beginning, as right at the top, right at the start of Torah Shebechsav. Moving on to all the other questions, I think the answer is very simply and best brought out by a story shared with me by somebody from our neighborhood. His name is Rabbi Moshe. I'm not going to share his last name because I never got permission from him. Very special Yid. He told me that many years ago, he went up north just to get a little bit of a breather, went with his wife. They ended up meeting some guy who owns a vineyard, a boutique winery. The wine is extremely expensive, at least $100 a bottle. Enjoyed his time. He didn't say if he got a free bottle or not, but he enjoyed his time, and he got to walk through the vineyard, and it was nice and relaxing, and he went back to Yerushalmi. A few years later, he decided, let me try this again. Let me get a nice breather, clear my head in the nice northern air. So he goes up to the same vineyard, and it was Shemitah. The entire thing was desolate. It looked like it was in ruins. Fences falling apart, grapes weren't juicy, they didn't look very tasty, thorns, brambles, thistles growing all over the place, weeds, everything it looked like a disaster. And just to bring out the contrast even starker, next the neighboring vineyard was owned by a famous winery, and it was very developed for whatever reason. Either they weren't keeping Shemitah, or maybe they had certain heterim, and so they were keeping, and so everything was very developed. So he asked the I don't know if it was the vintner or the owner of the winery, he said, how is it possible? Your wine is so expensive, it's so sought after all across the world. Each bottle's minimum $100, and you leave your vineyard like this, especially in contrast to the neighboring guy. How do you do it? So it was this fellow's turn to look in confusion at this Yid Rabbi Moshe from my neighborhood who was saying this story over. He says, I don't understand you. You're saying that I have such great grapes and I have such great wine, and you don't understand how I'm able to do what I'm doing over here during the Shemitah year. You think I do anything? I planted the vines. They grow by themselves. I don't even water them. Hashem waters them. The rain comes down, and even though, I invested in an expensive drip irrigation system, so it provides them with a little bit of extra water, but who's to say that the grapes are going to grow? No matter what I do, I can't force the grapes to grow. So when they grow, that's all from Hashem. That's not me. And even when they grow, are they going to grow juicy? Are they going to be tasty? Are they going to be sweet? Or is it going to be a bad crop? Is it going to get wormy? This is all something that I'm not able to prevent, says the owner of the winery. Take it a step further. I do my best. You're right. I invest 100%. I do my best. I try to harvest it, late harvest, early harvest, fall, winter, night, whatever it is, all the different things you see on the wine bottles that you're not really so sure what it means, but it looks fancy and it's expensive, so you buy it. That's what I do, says the guy. But I don't know if the wine's going to turn out good. It might spoil in the vat. It might not be motzachein be'enei adam. People might not find it tasty. And so it's with Hashem's help that they find my wine delicious and tasty, and they're even willing to shell out at least $100 for a bottle. So he tells us, Rabbi Moshe, I didn't do anything. It's all from Hashem. So when Hashem says, keep Shemitah, I keep Shemitah to the best of my ability. Now that's beautiful simplicity, and that's not what I'm here to say. It's the main point that the farmer was saying, is that it's all from Hashem. As much effort as we put in, we always have to realize that everything is coming from Hashem, and all of our tzlacha and all of our greatness is coming from Hashem. That's brought out by Seder Zeraim. As we said, a person is meimas atzma, he kills himself to learn. You have a farmer, he kills himself for his crops. He's staying up late at night, waking up early in the morning, doing his utmost to make sure that the crop grows and everything comes out perfect. And a person there's always that fear that a person's going to say, it's up to me. I'm the one that did it because I put in all this hashka, I put in all this investment. So Hashem says, just as the fruit starts growing and you're excited, you're about to take that first fig and you're about to make a bracha on it because you want to eat it. It's the first one that's finally growing after months of investment. Hashem says, hold on 1 second. Bikurim, it's not yours. You have to give it up to Hashem. A little bit later on, a person finally is harvesting their field. Hashem says, you can't take the whole crop home. Don't forget about the aniyim, leket shechem peah, parrot and oilers. You got to leave whatever it is there, leave it for the poor people. Don't forget that all of your success came from me, says Hashem. Leave some there for the poor people. A guy finally brings everything into his house. He's got it there. He's about to store it away. Hold on 1 second. Truma to the Chaim, because we have a hierarchy in Yiddishkeit. Meiser to the Levi, and then depending on the year, we have Meiser Ani, years 1 to Meiser Sheni, years 1, 2, 4, and 5. He's got to bring it up to Yerushalmi, bring it up to Yerushalmi is the same exact thing. You're eating it, so to speak, with Hashem. As it says, Lifnei Hashem. We have years 3 and 6. Give it to the ani, give it to the poor person. Don't forget about it. And when you're about to finally enjoy yourself, the fruits of your labor, when you make yourself a nice dough for a delicious, tasty bread, Hashem says, hold on 1 second. You still have to remember where everything's from. Take off a piece of challah and give it to the kohen. That's the running theme through all of Seder Zeraim. Remember where all of your success comes from. And now we come to the next question, which is why is it that we have Bikurim as the last Masechta instead of the first? So this is brought out by a very unique contrast. Bikurim and Truma really have the same exact din. They're not allowed to be eaten by a non-Kohen, a person, it might be Chayav a Chomesh, a whole bunch of dinim in which Truma and Bikurim are the same. But the way that we go about them is very different. Truma, you simply take it off, you give it to the Kohen, no fanfare. Bikurim, for anyone who learned the Masechta, or even if you read the Psukim in the Torah, Bikurim is very special. Everyone gathers together, and all the towns, they all come together. All the people there, Bikurim, and they start this whole procession up to Yerushalayim. They have a chalil makel lifneihem. Someone's playing the flute in front of them, and then they have this cow with a wreath of olives on its head, a nice decorated cow, and they're all going up to Yerushalayim, and then before they get to Yerushalayim, they send a messenger, guys, we're coming. So everyone closes their stores, and everyone comes out to meet them. Shalom Aleichem, welcome, where are you from? Bayachem b'shalom, come in peace. And not only are the storekeepers coming, but we also have the Chashuvei Yerushalayim are coming to greet them. They come into Beis HaMikdash, so much fanfare, so much happening. What's the difference? The Mishnah says that by Truma, if a person wants to give their entire field as Truma, they want to give everything to a Kohen, very magnanimous, they're not allowed to do so. They have to leave a little bit over for themselves. But by Bikurim, if someone wants to give their whole field away as Bikurim, they're allowed to do so. And that's because Bikurim, we see through the whole fanfare, the whole procession, the whole simcha of bringing it, is that it's really a person giving his gift to Hashem. Yes, from a technical halachic aspect, a Kohen is going to be eating the Bikurim. But from the nafshi aspect, if you will, Bikurim are really a gift to Hashem. It's just between me and you, Hashem. I'm giving you my first fruits. I'm giving you everything. And therefore, if a person recognizes that that everything I have is from Hashem, so I can give everything back to Hashem, and that's why a person gives his entire field as Bikurim, as opposed to Truma, which is why I believe Bikurim is the last Masechta in Seder Zeraim, is because as we're finishing off all these somewhat, unclear halachas for a lot of us, perhaps not relevant halachas, we're walking away with that message of everything that we have is from Hashem. And that's why the last line ends off with that same exact concept, having a Sefer Torah in one's home. We know who has to have a Sefer Torah with them at all times? A Jewish king. A Jewish king is the only one that's allowed to sit down in the Azar of the Beis HaMikdash. Why is that? Chazal say, Les le migarmei klum. A Jewish king has nothing of his own. A parent is allowed to forgive their honor, a leader is allowed to forgive their honor, but a Jewish king is not allowed to forgive his honor. He's not allowed to be meichel on his kavod. And that's because, Les le migarmei klum. A Jewish king, if we can say this, is Hashem in this world. He's a representation of Hashem, and he is Kol Kulei Hashem. That's all the Jewish king is, and that's why he's allowed to sit down in the Azara, because only the Shekhinah is allowed to, so to speak, sit down in the Azara. A Jewish king is allowed to sit down in the Azara because he really is Hashem himself, and that's why he has to carry around the Sefer Torah. No one else has to carry around the Sefer Torah with him besides a Jewish king. A Jewish king is Hashem's representative in this world, so he always has to remember that, and by doing so, he's carrying that little Sefer Torah around with him. The message Chazal are teaching us by ending Bikurim, which is Seder Zeraim, off with this concept of with a Sefer Torah, a person keeping a Sefer Torah in one's home, brings us out for every single person, even if they're not a farmer. We always have to remember that all of our successes and everything that we do in life is all from Hashem. Have that Sefer Torah in your home. Keep it there, and you'll be successful. And this brings us really right into Shabbos. Everyone should probably could really say the continuation of this themselves. We're just going to complete it just for the sake of completion. As Shabbos is the same exact thing. Rabbi Shimshon Pincus says that Shabbos is is the day of Hashem. Hashem says, I want to spend time with you. I want to eat the sudas with you. I want to relax with you. I want to enjoy with you. That's what Shabbos is. We know that Shabbos corresponds to the Beis HaMikdash. The 3 tefillas correspond to different parts of the Beis HaMikdash. The 3 sudas correspond to different parts of the Beis HaMikdash. Shabbos is Beis HaMikdash. Shabbos is Shechina. Shabbos is Hashem. You're spending the day with Hashem. Sheishes Yomim Tasam Lachtecha. 6 days we do work. 6 days we're out in the Rishus Harabim. We're out in the public domain for 6 days. The 7th day we reconnect. The 7th day we're in Rishus HaYachid. We're in our own Rishus. It's just us and Hashem. It's a private domain with nobody else allowed. That's why Chazal, I heard this from my Rabbi, this is not my own vart. That's why Chazal say that the beginning of Shabbos talks about Haitzah, talks about the Isser, the prohibition of transferring from one Rishus to another Rishus, from one locale to another locale. We want to stay in our Rishus HaYachid on Shabbos. We want to be with Hashem on Shabbos. And that gives us the koach to go out into the Rishus Harabim throughout the week, to go out into the public throughout the week, recognizing that everything came from Hashem. So b'schos, learning Seder Zeraim and starting Seder Mayed Be'ez Hashem, we should be able to take all these lessons. And the everyone from all the Yidden from all over should come to Yerushalmi HaKodesh, continue learning Yerushalmi, and as many people have said before, we should be zeichet to make our next Siyum in the Beis HaMikdash, keeping all the mitzvahs d'oraisa, not just d'Rabbanan. We should be zeichet to come Mashiach Tzidkeinu b'mher v'yameinu. Be starting Mesachas Shabbos. Shtayim shein arba v'chulu.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Resnik. That's it. That was the quick Mishnah. That was the quick Mishnah. We're going to be serving dessert now. I also want to thank Benny Neuwirth for coming. Many of you who use Oldaf, they see on the splash screen when it opens up, it's dedicated in memory of his grandfather, by his father, who passed away almost 2 years ago. So Benny's father, Benny who's here and learns in Shalavim, came to be with us tonight. His father, Stephen Neuwirth, Shalom and Peretz, was the person who gave the initial funding to get Oldaf started. So thank you, Benny, for coming. And one more thank you. We have our developers here, Shlomo Dapkin, Izzy Goldman, who came from Ramat Beit Shemesh. If there are any bugs, any problems with the apps, they're over there. They're in the corner there. But seriously, we thank them very, very much for coming, and keep up the great work. Without them, there's no app, there's no website, there's no anything. Thank you.